Hello and welcome. Oh God.
It's your sign, never meant online. Tommy Watson's scoring goals all the time. With Patrick Roberts and his magic feet, we have brought a new ARB. Christmas time, Mackem 09. Tommy Watson scoring goals all the time. With Patrick Roberts and his magic feet, we have brought a new ARB.
Hello and welcome back to the What the Falk Sunderland Review podcast on a slightly later time of Sunday morning. A rain-swept Stadium of Light and my cold may have kept me delayed from getting home by about 3 to 4 hours, getting back to Scotland, but it didn't stop Sunderland win as Tommy Watson ensured that we ended our mini blip and returned to winning ways on Wearside. We've got a win to talk about, so I hope you'll join us as we run through Sunderland 2, Stoke City 1. To join me, as ever, is Peter. Peter, how are you doing? You all right?
Do you know what? I'm great, thanks. Wonderful what a Sunderland win does for you. Absolutely brilliant. And, over the moon for Tommy Watson. Thomas Watson, do we give him his full name? I noticed this is what the link to record this today was called. We're giving him full names,
Sunday name.
It's his Sunday name, exactly, for this Sunday record.
Sunday morning podcast calls for Sunday morning names. Also, I sound really ill this morning, so I'm going to try and speak as little as I can because I just sound like a mumbly man. Lee, how are you doing? Are you all right?
So a little bit hungover this morning. I'm pleased you're doing the podcast this morning and not last night. I wouldn't have been able to speak last night if you did it last night. But I just, same as what Pete said, buzzing for Tommy Watson. I think it goes unnoticed the academy players that we have. I mean, obviously you've seen Harrison Jones make an appearance as well, and I don't think it'll be long before you see Ogunsui make an appearance as well. But there's a talk in the week that would you have Jack Clark back on loan, and seeing the form of Mundle and seeing the form of Tommy Watson? No thanks.
I don't think it's required. And talking about hangovers, Ross was texting us yesterday and he was like, got to give us a shout out on the podcast because I've had a shit week and I just want you to know that I love you all. And you're all brilliant, and thanks so much, and I love you. And I was like, Ross, have you had one or two, mate? And he was like, yes. So Ross will also be nursing his head this morning.
Love you, Ross.
Yeah, we love Ross. We love Ross. So morning after, Pete, I think normally I'd ask how you feel about the result. I think, look, ultimately we all know what the result meant in terms of our moods. But how important is that win in the context of the season, especially after, I don't want to say the bad run of form, but we haven't won in, 6 games?
It would have left a nasty taste in the mouth to concede. Well, they would have been conceding 2 points. It would have been given 2 points away, considering the possession and everything that Sunderland had. Look, I think it would have been 2 points dropped, certainly, and I was feeling, how am I going to really take this on if it ends up being another draw? Do you get the weather conditions? Look, they were tough game football to play. It's the same for either side, as everybody always says, though. I thought Sunderland played brilliantly in patches. I thought some of the football, considering the weather conditions, they were playing some absolutely gorgeous football. There were, there's bits where it didn't go exactly to plan, but overall, I'm very happy, and I think ultimately what it does for the mentality of the side is just to get that 3 points back in the points column, 3 points in the points column, the win in the win column. It means that, you look at the likes of the body language, look at the social media messages. I know you can always read far too much into that. From the likes of Wilson Isidore, the boy has looked distraught the last couple of weeks when he's come off the pitch. I mean, he was unhappy with himself for missing chances yesterday, but still, there's a little bit of a swagger and a little bit of a bop in him, even as he came off with his, let's just hope it's a bit of cramp and nothing too serious with his leg there. But no, I think that's potentially huge, particularly with, there's going to be terrible, scruffy, horrible evenings or lunchtimes in the Championship. And, you're playing a game in Sunderland in winter time. Of course, it's going to be cold and rainy and wet. To come through there, to battle in, to come from a goal down and win it 2-1, happy with that. Can't argue with it. It's only going to give Regis a bit of more to work with on the training pitch with the players, to go, look, lads, there you go. You've dug in and you've come out with something. Whereas in previous weeks, we've been disappointed by late goals and conceding late. Absolutely over the moon that they hung on. I think it could have a huge influence on their mentality and drive us forward into this busy week.
Lee, I think when you look at the performance as well and the result, most importantly, I think a lot of us said the result was the most important thing. But based on the Championship season, and we said, these 5 draws are a pain in the arse, and then you got beat Sheffield United and we played well, and you were like, And it was starting to feel a bit like, okay, there's context behind all of those results, but it was getting to the point where like, right, we need a win. And 12:30 kickoff in the like rain-soaked stadium light against Stoke City couldn't have been more, oh God, this is one that if we don't win, this could change the season a bit. But ultimately we've came through it. It's another big test based on the conditions. There was pressure going into it. I'm not saying it's going to change our season, but it certainly makes the last results that we just had, the draws and the defeat Sheffield United, you can now look back on those games with context as opposed to with a bit like, oh, is this where our season derailed, can't you?
And say yesterday was getting a win by no matter what. It didn't matter if it was a 1-0 scrappy win. And to be honest, if it wasn't for Victor Johansson in goal, it would have been 4 or 5. I thought he was outstanding yesterday and proved why he's the best goalkeeper in the Championship, really. But I think the conditions yesterday, the way Stoke set up as well, they set up for a point. When they scored the first goal, they set up for a point. And I think it was crucial the way we scored our equaliser straight away. So I think if that goes to half-time and Stoke are winning 1-0, I think it's a totally different kettle of fish in the second half, because I think a lot of fans get on the backs, personally. But as I say, it was just a matter of getting the win, get back on track, move on to Bristol City on Tuesday.
I think it's not so much getting on the back. I think you get nervous, you get tetchy, don't you? And especially like when the rain's like that and the weather's like that, like, there's a lot of people that were just kind of trying to stay not cold, basically. Few like fans did really well to get behind the team and stuff like that, but I do think it gets to half-time, you're 1-0 down to home to Stoke, the weather's like that, you're thinking, oh God, where's this run going to go to? So I think real positive that we went straight back at them and equalised. Fair play to Tommy Watson with that. And I think massively vital that we won. And it was a deserved win. I don't think Stoke were terrible. They actually like surprised me a bit, because the first sort of 20 minutes I was like, is this just Rory Delap? Because they kept taking long throws. And I was like, Stoke have not progressed at all in 15 to 20 years. But then I thought they played some decent football, but they were ordinary. They were very ordinary, let's be honest. And it was a team that was there to be beaten. But I'll stick with you, Lee. Look, we're going to get stuck into Tommy Watson for obvious reasons. We'll discuss them on the Sheffield United review pod. But before we go into like a segment on Tommy Watson, which we have to do, which other players stood out for you, and what was the reason behind the reason they stood out for you?
Always get stick for this, but I thought Dan Neil was fantastic.
He was class. Yeah, he was great, mate. I'm 100% with you on that. He was, for me, all right, Watson probably has to take man of the match, but he was best player on the pitch for me.
Winning goal comes from him. He's calmness on the ball, taking on his chest, and it takes out 2 Stoke defenders, and then we go through and score. But I thought it was a proper captain's performance by Dan Neil yesterday. He doesn't get praise for the stuff when he does right. He seems like you only get stick for when he does things wrong. There's like those groans when he played that pass across the edge of the box, and Isidore just wasn't quite there. And those groans, those groans as if it was Dan Neil's fault. He's done the right thing by passing it across. There's nothing much else to do. But I thought he was outstanding yesterday, Dan Neil.
Yeah, no, I agree. For me, look, we'll take Watson out of the equation, because I think it's unfair to say he wasn't the best player on the pitch, because his job is to score and create goals, and he scored twice. And he could have created more. He could have had a hat-trick if we're completely honest. But I thought Daniel was excellent yesterday. And I've been quite critical of him, with the caveat that I think he isn't that position. And I think he's had more bad games than good games this season. But got to call a spade yesterday. It was a proper captain's performance. There was points when like he led us through. The cross for Isidore, I remember, because he turned around and like kind of shrugged his shoulders a bit and like screwed his face up when the cross went in. And people did seem to kind of get annoyed at Daniel, but it was Isidore's fault. He should have been in the box. I mean, Isidore yesterday's a different conversation, isn't he? Because I love him, but he should have had a bloody hat-trick yesterday at points, because I think when he missed that chance, it became to the point where Isidore started snatching at stuff, and you were a bit like, just calm down. Calm down. I know you're like a 5-year-old, but just chill out a minute. Like, you'll get your goal. But he ran the channels, and I think that's the beauty of Wilson Isidore. He's a centre forward, isn't he? And I think we've talked about not having that centre forward that does the centre forward role. He didn't score yesterday, but he ran the channels, he held it up, he passed it, he did what he could. And a performance when he's probably annoyed that he hasn't scored 2 or 3. But Dan Neil, absolutely excellent, agree. Pete, I'm going to give you the same question. We're going to save a segment for Tommy Watson, so please hold back on Thomas Watson praise. Who else impressed you outside of Dan Neil?
Yeah, do you know what? I'm going to go for the lad alongside him. And just as I was saying, he was having a good game to my wife yesterday. He gave the ball away, but I still think he gives us so much more. As Job in midfield there alongside him. And it's more that from the way that the lad can provide an exit ball when we've perhaps played one too many passes. Or there was one instance, I think it's Paddy Roberts, who I thought had a great game as well. I thought Paddy Roberts quietened a few of the concerns yesterday. I think didn't do anything exceptional, but That's the type of game I think he needed to have after the performance he put in previously. But sorry, I was talking about Job. Just when something's gone a little bit too long or it's not quite going there, he has the ability to get the ball away and play it into a Sunderland player who's in more space, and we can continue with the move. I thought he did that fantastically yesterday. And it's just, I think we've spoken about it before, his ability to change the tempo, change the pace of an attack. Because if you are trying to build like Reggie's has them, it can either be perilously slow, in which you get picked off by the opposition, or you can try and go too quick with getting the ball forward with the passes. And again, you get picked off by the opposition because you're not further enough up the field. And I think Job allows like that. He's a very good tempo control for how they move forward, and that they use him as that fulcrum. That's a word I don't get to use enough, to pass into and allow the move to come off. So yeah, I would go with young Master Bellingham as a player I was very impressed with seeing yesterday, with an honourable mention to Patrick Roberts did what he needed to do yesterday, and I'm quite happy with him.
I got into an argument on the Metro about Patrick Roberts yesterday because
it's easily done, I think, at the moment.
Well, as I said yesterday, as I said in the show last week, and I think we had a full discussion, and we're going to go on to Patrick Roberts because I think it's important that we do, because I've also got a bee in me bonnet because a guy argued with us. Patrick Roberts, we called out for his lack of performance for a number of weeks and said there's been no end product, and he doesn't look like an end product. He looks out of form, out of confidence. And where's that Patrick Roberts from the start of the season? Now, the argument yesterday was that Patrick Roberts hasn't produced anything all season from this guy, and that he's always been rubbish, which everyone has their own opinion. No, I can't. Absolutely. But I think if we're going to do a full segment on Patrick Roberts not having a good performance and not playing well, I think we have to say that yesterday, Pete, Patrick Roberts was maybe not the 10 out of 10 that we've seen in the past, but with a dip in form, the worry surrounded him, he got an assist. And he should have had 2 assists because Watson should have scored that chance. I'm not going to attack Watson for that. He did enough. It's fine. But it should have been 2 assists yesterday. And yet again yesterday, I felt if it wasn't Tommy Watson, anything good that we did, attacking-wise, offensively, came through Patrick Roberts, which to me is the Patrick Roberts that we're used to seeing and the Patrick Roberts that we like to see. And he got an assist. Thoughts on Roberts yesterday? It's only one game, but...
Look, also, I think you've got to realise we're fairly simple creatures, Sunderland fans, really. If you're putting the shift in that you're supposed to put in, people will leave you alone, even if you're not having the greatest game, if you're really putting the effort in. And the lad, there was times where he was tracking back down that right-hand side, and he put in some really, especially when an attack had been reverted from Stoke side, and you've got Sunderland have been on the attack and all of a sudden having to defend. And he's back there doing his defensive duties as well. And I thought he did that really well. So, fair play to Patrick when he's put that type of performance in, because, we were digging him out the other week and he deserved digging out. And it wasn't, the world beating, he's the new Messi type of performance yesterday. But what he did do, he did very well. He did very competently. And he looked part of the game right up until the end. I mean, I think everybody looked a bit tired towards the end, but he was in it right up until the thing was done. So pleased with Patrick Roberts, happy with what I saw yesterday. Just need to keep him on doing that, because what we saw from him previously wasn't good enough. And I think Elisa Mayenda would have been very within his rights to be knocking on the boss's door and saying, I'm there if you need an option, boss. Just, if we fancy putting us in, I'm ready to go. But I don't think he is the replacement for Patrick Roberts. But, that was the option that's there. Happy to see Patrick playing the way he was playing. And long may it continue. Glad, in many ways, quite glad that we've got a game so soon afterwards, so that he gets that you can build momentum quite easily this week. Just hope it's the right way.
A fit and firing Patrick Roberts is so important to Sunderland, and people get so frustrated with Roberts because we know how important he can be. And he's shown that. And I think, look, like I say, everyone's entitled to their own opinion on Patrick Roberts, but I think if we thought he was rubbish, we probably wouldn't discuss him on the podcast outside of a minute of get him out the team. Hilariously, though, I did like the fact that young, raw Eliza Mayenda, come on yesterday and he had a chance to run the ball in the corner and he went, no, bugger this. I'm going to just try and beat someone and score. It was a wonderful lack of experience and inexperience of not holding it in the corner and just deciding to go for goal that I kind of liked. Like, none of this.
Yeah, my initial was, go on, son. And then it's like, hang on, no, not that way, man. You divvy. But no, yeah, I mean, look, if it had flown in the top corner, we would have been over the moon for him, of course. But like, yeah, probably want to avoid. I'm just always reminded of David Ginola back in the 90s where he was playing for France and he didn't cross the ball. Sorry, he crossed the ball instead of running it into the corner, and France didn't qualify for the World Cup. So that's always part of my mind.
Oh, what a shame. Lee, we're going to need to talk about Tommy Watson. Of course we do. I think we talked about him after the Sheffield United game and we said he was probably our best attacking outlet and we thought he was quite unlucky not to score. I think everyone who watched the Sheffield United game and saw what quality he brought. Yesterday he could have had a hat-trick. He deservedly got at least 2 goals. A lot of good stuff came through him. If it wasn't through Roberts, it was through Watson. Just how good was he? Because I think even for myself, I wouldn't say I had doubts in him, but I thought it was a big ask to chuck him in and produce what Mundle's been producing. And based on yesterday's performance and last week, there's not a great deal of difference between them.
I thought he was brilliant yesterday. He had their right back on toast every time he got the ball, to the point I think the second half, he needs to take it as a massive compliment, but I think towards the second half, correct us if I'm wrong, they started doubling up on him. Because every time he got the ball, he was turning the full back down the channels or he was cutting inside and he couldn't get anywhere near him. It just goes to show how good he was. Like, everyone was talking about him last year, about all his goals he scored for the academy and that, and he's getting his chance in the first team. He's maturing every game he's playing. Like, the ability's always been there. I think I've said in the group chat, he doesn't look out of place, but he's very, very raw. But the more games he's playing, the more mature he's getting. I just hope him, himself, and the crowd keep their feet on the ground when it comes to him, because he's not going to produce that type of performance every single week. Just be patient with him. He might go and score 1 next week, but then it's like a case of just like keeping him and the support, like the expectations at a low, because he's still a young boy. He's still new to the Championship football. But he was class yesterday, and to say he took on what he did against Sheffield United, and obviously got his end product by his 2 goals, and they were thoroughly deserved as well.
I don't think he would have got the assist, because I don't think he gets assists for penalties. But if Roberts scores yesterday, I think he also gets assist to an extent. He creates a goal, if that makes sense. One of the listener questions, which is quite good, and it's funny that you mentioned about keeping your feet on the ground with Tommy Watson, which I think is vitally important, because the kid is a bit raw. He's not as raw as like a Mayenda, to be honest. He looks a little bit more like not out of place, as you touched on it. But he's still 18. We can't expect him to score 2 goals every single week, and we can't get frustrated when he doesn't. I don't think we will, but I agree with largely the point you made. But someone, like a few people said, is he a Jack Clark regen? Jack Clark's gone. Tommy Watson's Tommy Watson. But one of the questions which I thought was really important was, is Mundle going to be Watson's backup? Which I thought was a really interesting question, because I think it's a huge compliment to Watson that people are talking about that. But I think it's a huge disservice to Romain Mundle, who I think is an excellent footballer. I love the fact we have both, but for me, if it's just me, and you're giving me the choice of the two at the minute, I'm sticking with Romain Mundle, and then you're bringing on Tommy Watson later on to torture defenders. I would like Mundle to be fit, so the pressure's not on Watson to have to produce what Mundle's starting to produce. For me, it's a no at the moment. I'm a big Romain Mundle fan. As for is he a Jack Clark regen? Can I be completely blunt? Don't care. The boy's gone. He's gone to bigger and better things down in Norfolk, and they're doing really well. So fair play to him. Well done. Good move. Well done, Ian Hart. Idiot.
It was in Suffolk.
One big problem with that though, like Tommy Watson is going out with Ian Hart's daughter. So let's just hope he doesn't get in his ear and say,
"Oh, like I said, I've always been a big fan of Ian Hart. Please sign a new contract." Pete, I want to talk about O'Nien, because O'Nien had a few off games or made mistakes. Sheffield United made a mistake at Millwall. And it was when he was at right back, and we had this idea that, Luke O'Nien will play anywhere and fit in anywhere and be all right. And he can. But for me, if we're not realising now that O'Nien's a centre-half and he's vitally important to the way that we play, I think we're not looking close enough. That's, again, my opinion. Came back yesterday, brilliant defensively. One particular pass to Tommy Watson that was just outstanding, especially in the conditions. For me, another 8 out of 10 game from O'Nien at centre-half. Meppem's back on Tuesday. Who's your centre-half pairing?
Oh man, that's the tough one. Can I not talk about how awesome Tommy Watson is?
No.
And I'm going to make sure I get it in there, because it does bother me. Ipswich is in Suffolk, is it not?
I didn't know. Who cares about Ipswich?
Counties, man. Anyway,
big club.
Oh, right. Mackem, does he come back in? I mean, he's the best defender in the league. So, yeah, he comes back in. Who does he come back in for? That's the question.
Dan Ballard for me.
Who do I think he comes back in for, or who do I want him to come back in for?
Go with one.
I mean, I want him to come back in for Dan Ballard. I love Dan as well. I think Dan Ballard has a fantastic future in football, and he's already established himself as a top quality championship and international defender, who gives you a threat at both at the opposition end as well from set pieces. I just think in a lot of it will come down to that. You mentioned one of those passes that he played later on in the game, and I think Luke played quite a few of them yesterday, and in terrible conditions to get them. And he has that in his locker, that distribution, the way he can move with the ball out of defence. Not that Dan Ballard hasn't got the ability to run with it at his feet, but I just think Luke's better at it. I'm dropping Dan Ballard, and I'm playing, he says with all of the confidence in the world, I'm dropping Dan Ballard, and I'm playing Mackem in 9, and I think that's what you play until it's no longer a viable partnership, either but through suspension or through form. I
agree, but if people are thinking the opposite, or people think, oh no, it should be Ballard or X, Y, Z.
Perfectly viable argument. It's an absolutely viable argument to say Dan Ballard and Mackem give you such a physical presence in the advantage. Thank you. I'm really poor today. They're all in there. They're just not in the right order. It's I think you play. I think we play Mackem in 09. Oh, it's hard to leave Dan Ballard out. I do love him. Lee, what you've got to add something on this, haven't you?
Before Lee says anything, I'm going to let Lee come in because he's actually can make a point in the chat. And when someone speaks in the chat, then we have to allow. But it's a conversation which could bring up arguments, different opinions, because we've got 3 very good centre-halves, 4 if you count Adji in that as well. I think it's a very capable and good centre-half, very, very good centre-half, very, very good defender. When we started this podcast, the conversation was Lawrence de Bock or Joel Lynch at centre-half. So I don't really care who plays, really. I've got my opinion. It will be O'Nien and Mackem. At least it's not Joel Lynch and Lawrence de Bock.
Joel Lynch.
The Lord.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. That was a thing.
How far we've gone?
So far. Lee, you wanted to make a point about Mackem, who I keep calling Meps, as if I'm his mate. I'm not.
It's not mostly a point on Mackem or if it's Mackem or Ballard to play alongside 09 or the other, but it adds on to the question that you asked before about Watson or Mundell. It goes to show how good of a squad we actually have. And I think a lot of people outside of Sunderland need to take notice of how good of a squad we have, because you're asking about saying who plays left wing, Mundell or Watson. Then you're going up front, Isidore or Mayenda. Then you've got in midfield, obviously when everyone's fit, Brown or Neil or Job or Rigg. Then you've got the centre-half pair. Then you've got your right backs, when obviously when City taking account Jensen Sale's not fit yet. When he gets fit, he can come in anywhere else. It just goes to show how good of a squad we have when we're having these discussions. And as I said, we're 4th for a reason for how good a squad we have. And it would be nice if everyone outside of Sunderland started taking us they actually could have a good crack this year.
I think a lot of the time people concentrate on how strong Sheffield United and Leeds squads are, and they are strong. And I would like to see a bit of cover at right back because Huggins is not going to be back this season, and I'd love dare I say it, a Jordan Henderson level of experience in the middle just to get us over the line in games like Millwall, Coventry. But we have got a good squad. The argument was, if Sunderland lose Jack Clark, what do they have? Well, 2 really capable left wingers, the way we don't miss him. I'd like someone maybe to push Roberts a bit more because I think Paveda's permo injured, and he just I don't know the lad, but he looks like he's not bothered about being here, to be completely honest. That's the impression he gives off. I'm not going to judge him on that. It might just be his face. It could be, I don't know. But he's also, most importantly, he could be desperate to be here. He's injured and he looks permo injured. So there's maybe a bit of strength needed there. But I do agree with you. I think it's underplayed how strong the squad is, especially in particular areas. For me, the selection of centre-backs that we have are right up there. The selection of full-backs we have, sadly, there's injury-prone players in there. Huggins, Serkin, Adji. On paper, there's not many teams that have a selection of players that good. Up top, you mentioned Mayenda, but Conley's there as well. I've liked what I've seen from Conley. I think he's a different option. But Lee, I wanted to change a little bit of the question and change it away from football because we were discussing this yesterday. In terms of weather, because it's hard to ignore, is that the worst kind of rainy conditions we've ever had, because I can't think of any game outside of ones that have been postponed, like when Rory Delap, who's been mentioned twice in this podcast, broke his nose against Fulham. I cannot remember a game like that at the Stadium Light in terms of like the weather just being minging. It was almost at the level of Phillips in the rain at St James's, almost, but not quite.
Aye, not quite there. Or like the swimming pool up Fratton Park down Portsmouth. To me, it wasn't just the rain, it was the wind where it kept hitting you in the face. Like when obviously we went for a walk from the ground to the club, and it's like you had to walk with your head down because it was bad. Like I was the coldest at the game. Like everyone was like, I think at one point when Peter started saying, if you hate the mag, stand up, I was getting, I am cold, I ain't moving. I hate the mags as much as the next Sunderland supporter, but I ain't moving, I'm cold. But this probably the worst I've ever experienced at the stadium of my life.
There was people in shorts. Copley was saying on the Echoes, like
a lad walked past me and he had jogging shorts on, not just like the jogging bottoms, not just like normal shorts. I just looked at him and just like, shook my head at him. I don't think he noticed because he just walked straight past us.
From like people listening to the podcast this week, I recorded the preview on Monday and I was ill, like absolutely ill. And I've got better Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, a bit of a stuffy nose, and I thought, I'll be fine. And I bet you people listen to this thing, oh God, he sounds absolutely ill. Look, to be honest with you, idiot decision for me to stay in the weather and not get back home at 1 o'clock in the morning. But you do it, don't you? You do it for Sunderland. It is what it is. I would have felt very different if we got a draw out of that, like, to be honest, but here we are.
On Peter Bin the ground, there was not a cat in hell's chance. It was 39,000 there yesterday.
No.
Not a cat in hell's chance.
You could hear the like a ripple of laughter when it was announced, and I'm watching it on the stream at home, like, and you can hear it's just like, right, when that comes on. But mine, fair play to you boys and everybody else who was there, all the 39,000 that was there, because there are times when I sit in my little exile in Germany and I'm thinking, I would give anything to be there right now. And yesterday, as I sat watching it on the couch with the dog, I thought, I'm probably in the best place for this of the day.
I went at half time just to get warm. I never normally go down to the gantry and get warm because the pints are awful. Like, no offense, but I don't like calling it in the best of times, let alone a warm one that's going to cost me £5. But when there was this guy just talking to his mate, like a proper big, massive, strong bloke, big coat on, and he went to his mate, I need to go home. And I was like listening intently to the conversation. He went, look at me fingers, and his fingers were blue. And he went, this is painful. I just need to go home. And he was like, you can't go home yet, Maren. He's like, I need to go home. And I just watched him walk out the turnstile. I was like, and I had no regret. The argument about leaving early suddenly changed for me yesterday. I was like, I completely understand it because it was absolutely minging. And I don't think there's ever been worse conditions. There was one shout yesterday from the lad who sits behind us, Dylan, good lad. He went, not as cold as West Brom at home though Monday night, and I think I agree with that. That was cold, and we lost, so it was colder. Couple of listeners' questions before we go. Some good ones this week, really good ones. I'll go to you with this one, Lee. Which one do I go for? Right. Why is Connolly not being given a run when we're making so many chances and not converting? I'm still really confident in Wilson, but I think it's a fair question because Connolly must be thinking, well, I've scored. Wilson hasn't for a while. I'm kicking my heels on the bench.
Possibly, but to me, when you're playing as a number 9 by yourself, Isidor's just head and shoulders above everybody else. It's a stupid comparison, and people in the comments, please don't jump on us. But you don't see City dropping Haaland. He's your best centre forward. He's the most likely to get you a goal out of nothing. He runs the channel as well. He does things better than what Connolly and Mayenda do, which is obviously Regis sees. But I think that's probably the reason why you just don't drop him at the minute. If he doesn't score on Tuesday and he has a stinker, then fair enough. But he's not scoring but playing well, if that makes sense.
I think with Connolly as well, the best performance I've seen him put in, he played in the number 10 role. I really wouldn't discount him in that position because I think he's a talented kid. He came through in the Premier League and I think he scored a couple of goals before he's documented issues which we know about, which hopefully he's getting over and doing well with himself. His best position for me that I've seen him so far in a 70, 80 minute spell was in the number 10 role when he scored. So It's not necessarily, if getting a chance, maybe even a number 10. But for me at the minute, Wilson, he runs Channel's best. He's our best striker. I've not lost faith in Wilson, even slightly, and not at all yet. But I appreciate the point. We are creating chances, and we probably should have won yesterday, about 5-1. Pete, this is another good question, because we're talking about like using the squad. When does Alexis get minutes? With Brown and maybe Salas fit in the coming weeks, what role do you see Alexis playing this season?
Diminished. And I want Alan Brown back as soon as possible. I think he provides us something in that midfield that we need, that experience, everything like that. Samir, we don't know what we're going to get. We'll see what he's like. But I think depending on what Samir's like, Alexić might find his role increasingly diminished, even if he comes through, even if he's still playing for Serbian under-21s and scoring the great goals like he was the other international break. It might not. We've seen it from the recruitment team in the past, where they've brought in players and you might see them here and there and everywhere, but there's a longer-term plan. Now, I am not going to question them at the moment, considering that I was whinging that they were going to sell Jack Clark, thinking, well, they've got to come in, well, they've got two, and they knew they had two. So I'm presuming if he's not getting the minutes, it's purely because he's not at the level, because Regis will see him. He's not at the level there to come in right now. I would think if we only, in an ideal world, we only need to see Alexić in the case of either it's all done and dusted, or we have a terrible situation whereby we need to rotate extensively. I'm not expecting to see too much of him. But then again, that means he'd probably be the star of the second half of the season. But I wouldn't, anyway, I'm not expecting to see too much of Alexić this year, particularly if Brown can come back fit and Samir is the player we've been led to believe.
I think I agree with that.
Perhaps even maybe, do you loan out a young 20-year-old Serbian kid, a 19-year-old Serbian kid? Probably not. Probably best to keep him close right now. So yeah, I would think, keep him fairly limited this year.
From the very limited time I've seen him at Millwall, I can understand why he's not fully playing yet. I didn't think Mundell was going to be much, and he kind of had sporadic games last season, and I thought I've seen some things, but I went, and now I love Romain Mundell. I think you just need to bed in period, and I think thankfully with Salas and Brown coming back in, and of course Jordan Henderson signing in January, I think that we can feel that he can bed in and he doesn't need any rush to come in. But I understand the question. Look, I think we've paid decent money for him. So we'll go for one really obvious question. I don't think I'm going to get a preview done in time for Tuesday. I've tried to get one done for every game. Honestly, I've just run out of time. I know some people really enjoy them. I know some people don't. But I've run out of time. But I will have a one for Swansea. So we'll do a tiny wee 1 minute 30 preview here, Lee. How do you line up Tuesday? Back to front. Who's your starting 11?
Harrison, Hume, Mackem, O'Nien, Serkin, Neil, Job, Roberts, Connolly, Watson, Isido.
I don't disagree with any of that. I would like to see Ricky have just a bit of a rest. I think he's a kid. Let's rest his legs a bit. Because I don't think he's been poor, but I don't think he's been as impactful as he could have been. And I don't think it'll harm him by taking him out for a couple of games. And I think Bristol City's just got hammered off Portsmouth. We can feel confident that we should be able to get past that. Don't be surprised
to see Max O'Leary have an absolute worldie against us, because he loves playing against us.
He does, doesn't he? Oh, I know. Pete, I'll go the same with you. What's your lineup? You said you're back four, but what's your lineup?
I'll rattle quickly through. So obviously Patterson, I'm starting with Serkin. I'm starting with O'Nien, Mackem and Hume. I'm going in midfield with Roberts. I'm going with Job. I'm going with Dan Neil, and I'm going with young Tommy on the left. And then and as an attacking midfielder there, I'm going to put Connolly in. I think did Lee say exactly the same team with Isidore up front? I was definitely listening to what you were saying, Lee, and I wasn't taking care of any personal admin that's just landed on me with a great urgency. But yeah, I think that's the side. Totally agree with what you're saying about giving Chris Rigg a breather. Nothing to do with these performances. I think considering the lad has played every minute of every bit of football that's been available to him almost when he hasn't been suspended. He's been he's been off the field. He's been class. So, but yeah, deserves a rest. Could do with a rest. Come back better in the game after.
Quick one, Lee. Score prediction for Tuesday?
1-0.
Yep, I'll go 1-0. 1 or 2. I'm pretty confident we can get another 3 points with unbeaten at home. Another massive plus. I haven't seen Sunderland lose a game this season in the flesh.
Well, I'm going for Wilson sets that rangefinder better. He finds the goat back in the net with one of them. I'm going for 3-0. I'm going for an absolute romp.
I mean, if Pompey can beat them 3-0, there's no reason we can't. But thanks everyone for listening. Please unsubscribe as usual. A few people said hello yesterday because I had a little bit more time in Sunderland City Centre. Went to 3 Stories, went to near the Kiel Tavern, all those sort of places. And I had a few people come up and chat. And look, I know I take the piss, but it was quite nice. It's nice to know that you enjoy what we do. And if you don't, well, you kept quite quiet. So thanks for being very polite and not telling me that it's shite. Subscribe if you want. Subscribe if you don't. And yeah, enjoy your weekend. 3 points. Thank God. Pete won't be hanging himself on the Christmas tree this week.
Well, I've actually got some more Christmas lights to put up. I'm going to do them with a spring in me step this week, as opposed to the absolute dour face that I cast to my neighbours last weekend, swearing and cursing away to myself, hanging festive lights.
It's your sign, never meant online. Tommy Watson scoring goals all the time. With Patrick Roberts and his magic feet, we have brought a new ARB. Christmas time, Mackem on 9. Tommy Watson scoring goals all the time. With Patrick Roberts and his magic feet, we have brought a new ARB.